So we'll go ahead and call to order the workshop and declare a quorum of 6 members present. C1 on the workshop is consideration discussion related to the 2017-18 demographic update. Dr. Ely.
Thank you, Dr. Yokin, members of the board. It's our pleasure tonight to bring in Templeton Demographics to give us an update on where we are in relative to our growth in College Station ISD and some challenges that we will have ahead of us in regards to that growth, and have that presentation kind of build a part of a second presentation from Mr. Martindale, which will talk about some of the annual enrollment report from Board Policy FC Local. Rocky's here from Templeton Demographics, he has been the person who's worked most closely with us throughout this process for the last couple of years. He's very acquainted with our community and with the folks in development at the city, and where he gets a lot of his information. So he has quite an extensive report for us to review, and then I'm sure at any point we'd love to take your questions along the way. So, Rocky?
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. Good evening. Yes, our team we actually work with a team, so research team that's talked to people at the city and planners, so it really has been a group effort. So I look forward to sharing this with you and taking your questions. Click this or scroll
down.
Okay. One of the first things we look at is just kind of understanding economic conditions, just kind of know what's going on right around the area. The College Station MSA, which is the Metropolitan Statistical Area. So that's a census designated area that's basically the College Station, Bryan area. So 3.3% growth in jobs, about almost 4,000 jobs created in the last 12 months. It's just about almost three times the national rate. So strong job growth rate. Unemployment rates well below what people would consider full employment, which is 5%. In College Station, that's at 2.8%. Unemployment rates are extremely low. And then we've had about 2,738 annual home sales here in College Station. So that's up about 134 from 2016. We also have we got access to the deed transactions of the home sales, and so we can look at what homes sold, where they sold, and how much they sold for. This is not only existing homes, but also new homes. So you can see there the median sale price for a new home over the last, this is from January to October, so not quite a full year, $244,222 for a new home, and $243,750 for existing homes. So very tight, which we don't always see. We've seen some real accelerations in new homes in a lot of areas, so those are kept pretty tight there. District housing overview. These are the developments that our team has either mapped out because there's activity or mapped out because we know about future activity. The yellow is future activity, and the green are areas where there's already some activity. So right now there's more than 4,000 future lots planned, and half of those future planned lots are, fall within the Pebble Creek or Forest Ridge elementary zones. So over 2,000 lots are in just those two elementary zones right now where there's future development. Just to talk a little bit to some of this future development, Barron Crossing has 78 townhomes, 24 are occupied. They're still building. They've got about 8 under construction. Very few students there. I think that student yield there 0.08. So when we look at student yield, that's your total student yield, and that's students per home. So kind of, I think of it as, if you see a 0.1, that'd be like 10 students for every 100 homes or something like that. So very, very low student yield there. Now Bridgewood, that's more of a traditional single family development. They've got groundwork underway on a final 42 future lots. They're building 30 to 35 homes a year, that 230 to 400 price point, and their current yield is 0.54, so about 1 student for every 2 homes they build there. Castlegate is 841 total lots, approximately 700 are occupied. All lots have been delivered. We think it'll likely build out in 2018. They'll be done there. They're yielding 0.61. Very yes, sir.
You say 1 student per 2 houses, that student?
That's yes, sir. Yep. That's total students. And just to get an idea, elementary is usually about half that, just a little less than half sometimes, just to give you an idea. Brewster Point has 114 future lots with groundwork underway on phase 1 with 61 lots. They think they'll have the first homes by the end of this year and anticipate phase 2 to deliver during next summer, and they'd like to see themselves get to 40 to 50 homes a year. So they'd be building out in about 2-3 years. Creek Meadows, 1,086 total homes, including the duplex units. 700 homes are occupied, including 94 of those duplexes. So they're getting pretty close. Their yields there are 0.65, and they're both in their single family and their duplex. So it's a pretty standard yield. They got groundwork underway in some of the phases there with 73 future single family lots. This is a crossing at Lick Creek, 116 total lots, 15 are occupied, 8 are under construction. Their current student yield's about 0.53. So again, and this is all based on this year's students too. And then Pebble Creek, much larger, 1,800 total lots, 1,335 occupied. They have 10 under construction. The last that we checked with, and they're building about 24 to 35 a year. Again, student yield a little bit lower there with 0.46. So just below 0.5. Mission Ranch, 538 future lots. Now this is groundwork's underway on phases 1 and 2 with 80 lots. Phase 1's got 41 of them. They think they're going to deliver this spring. Phase 2 will deliver by the summer. They'd like to get 180 total lots delivered during 2018. So delivering the lots means it's ready to be built on too. I guess I should have made that clear before. It means they could start, once the lot's delivered, then they could start construction any day. They're the low 300s to 1 million. They'd like to do 60 to 80 homes a year, pretty aggressive. I guess they have a school site within that development as well. And Pershing Point Village, you can see there, that's, they'd like to deliver lots in 2018 as well. They've got about 99 lots there. Southern Point, this is, y'all are familiar with it, it's the old racetrack area there. They're anxious to get going. We kind of tried to follow up with this one as often as possible because we kind of keep things moving, just trying to see what's going on. I know that one of our researchers said they actually have stuff planned through the end of this year on the racetrack, so they haven't really started anything yet. But our researcher did talk to a planner just last Thursday, I think it was, and she said that they're ready to start. They're anxious to start. It could be as early as next year, but right now they haven't seen any new plans, any new site plans. So it looks like they, maybe delivering groundwork by this spring and summer, but that's pretty ambitious. Okay, so it could be just a little bit. And I know there's been talk of this another development here. I don't think it has a name.
Animate habitat.
Okay, and we talked to the city about that, and they said they've seen zero movement. That was from a planner there at the city on that one as well. Right now, they said on that track north of Southern Point. So just to give you kind of a thought on that. Multifamily overview. These are multifamily developments, future and under construction. The kind of that teal? I don't know what to call that color. That greenish color is future multifamily units. The purple color is under construction. So that's where there is some development. We've pulled out what we felt like is student-driven housing. So these are more market rate, going to be more apt to have some students in them. These developments here. This is an overview. Again, we excluded what we would consider student-driven housing. The Redmond Row homes, 16 homes. They have 9 complete, and they're leasing. 0 students so far. Carter's Creek was condos, 66 units. Jones Crossing development, that's going to be approximately 360 units, kind of a mixed-use development. 2020 before we see anything there. The Medical District Town Center, some of these are going to be pretty high-end, so you're not going to see a significant number of students. Barron Park, 150, that's an assisted living facility, so we shouldn't see any students there. Tower Point Apartments with 318 units, and Cap Rock with 242, and the Ranch with 272. These are all under construction. 2019, 2018, we should see some completions there. And so with that in mind, though, we're looking at the apartment yields. So we currently have 1,585 students residing in 15,000 apartment units. So very low yield, about a 0.1 overall yield, which makes sense when you have so many apartment complexes that are student-driven. So very low yields there. You can see the big red dots. So this next conversation is a little bit about charter school impact. Don't know how much you're familiar with the International Leadership of Texas, but they're going to be opening a K-8 campus within College Station ISD in the fall of 2018. Construction's underway. It's at the intersection of Longmere Drive and Graham. They typically enroll between 1,200 and 1,400. They want to build another campus, and we got some data. We did a public information request from the state where we were able to get some data. They're hoping to open another K-8 campus in Bryan soon, and eventually they'd like to have high school. Charter schools are brand new. I mean, from a demographer's perspective, trying to plan for the impacts of charter schools is changing the game. And we've been kind of right in the middle of it for the last two or 3 years, trying to figure out what that impact can be. In some cases, it can be pretty strong. So I do have some slides. I'm going to talk to that a little bit more here. So I'm going to kind of go through our projections here. We have 3 sets of projections, what we're calling a no charter impact, a charter impact, and then a low charter impact. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about how we develop those, because I got some slides that kind of talk to some charter impact at some other clients that we have that we've worked with and how that might have worked. So if charter schools were not expected in College Station, if that charter school was not opening, we'd expect enrollment growth of about 403 students next year, putting you at 14,056, 5-year growth of about 2,600 students, and at almost 18,000 students within 10 years. Campus-wise, from an elementary school perspective here, you can see that your elementary campuses would be growing, 60 to 200 students a year. These are just different class sizes, kind of the smaller class sizes coming and going. That's why some of those swings occur there. And again, this also has your high school, A&M Consolidated High School, reaching 2,000 students by 2021. And College Station High School being about 2,379 within about 5 years. It just kind of, or 2,598 in 5 years. Just kind of give you that 5-year look to keep in mind. Again, this is no charter impact. If we keep in mind the impact of charter schools that we've seen historically in different areas, this is a swing. You can see there, now we're showing a total enrollment decline next year of 319 students.
It's over in the right-hand column.
That's that far right side there. You see the negative 319 and 13,334. So it's about a 700 student swing. And this charter campus is going to be right in the middle of College Station. So oftentimes you'll see them on the edge, and we know that they could get some students. They could draw some students from someone commuting from, I guess, Navasota ISD that wanted to use a charter, or from Bryan. But since Bryan's going to have their own charter opportunity, we see the majority of that charter campus probably drawing students from the College Station Independent School District. So this slows things down, your 5-year growth a little bit. You're looking at 16,822 students by 27, 28. If I back this up, did I back it up?
Back is that way.
So that's back. It's to no charter. Yeah. So just keep in mind, we were at almost 18,000, okay, in 27, 28, and then I roll forward and we're at just 16.8. So it's over a 10-year period. It's about a 1,200 student impact that it could have, when it goes forward, especially as the high school comes online as well, if they're successful.
Can you go back? Can you talk about the 1-year impact usually?
Yeah, oh yeah, your greatest impact's going to be in that first year. They're going to, they say they're going K-8 to open up, so that's why we're talking about 700, 600 or 700 students that very first year. The next year, your impact's going to be a little bit less, and really we've even seen some district where we begin to see some students come back that second year. You're not going to recoup all of them, but you could see some students come back. But they're also, it's going to see how successful that they are, and if they decide, how soon they decide to take that 8th grade to 9th and 10th. And you could see students come back at the secondary level, at high school as well. It's really been a challenge for us to try to forecast it. It's so new, there's just not a lot of data on where some of that comes out. So that's kind of the challenge going forward. Now we do have another. Am I going the right direction? Nope. Yeah. Low charter. So this is if they don't, if they're not as successful getting started, they possibly only get some lower grade levels going. This would show growth of 44. So keep in mind our no charter impact was over 400. So now we're speculating that maybe only they draw 400 students out of College Station ISD. So it's just kind of a lower impact. you know, and we're at 17,586 in 10 years. So just about, it just falls just about in between your no impact and complete impact. This is, we just, because there's just hasn't been a charter school in College Station. We don't really have anything to base our data on. Now, I'm going to show you some data that we have from the Dallas-Fort Worth area, but being that you guys are not really attached to a metropolitan area like that, we don't know how significant it can be. If you can look at the elementary numbers here, we'll definitely see a decline, just like we did in the other impact scenario, the charter impact scenario. You could lose 148 elementary students going into next year. That number drops to 5,695. Your high schools, you can see now that when you go out five years, you're looking at 2,500 and 2,000 at your high schools. This is with your low charter impact. Again, at some point, it's going to, in the next 2 or 3 years, it kind of flushes out, and then you get your realized growth begins to come back because it's kind of, those numbers have been sucked out, and then you kind of just lose that same number each year. So it's really a challenge to kind of watch. So in summary, unemployment rate is well below 3% in College Station. Average new home sale price in College Station ISD is around $245,000. We've got more than half of your futures in 2 elementary zones, Pebble Creek and Forest Ridge. Mission Ranch is expecting its first residents in 2018. And Pecan Trail Intermediate School, opened this fall with 612 students, to just kind of give you where that opened up. International Leadership Academy is expected to have an impact on enrollment starting next year in 2018. And we're showing an increase between 1,570 and 2,670 students in the next 5 years. So that's kind of that swing between your impact and your no impact. So we're looking at 15,856 students in 2022, 2023 at your low charter impact, and 17,586 students in 10 years at your low charter impact. So I don't know if I was going to talk some more about charters if you have any questions before I move on to that, or do you want to wait? I got about 3 slides here and do them all at once. If you have a preference. So just a little bit of a case study just to kind of give you.
If you'll go ahead and go through your next 3, that'd be great.
Awesome, thank you. This is just a little bit of a case study. International Leadership of Texas in 12-13 had 0 campuses. In 13-14, they had about 2,409, almost 2,500 students. You can see that they've increased. In 2016-17, they had over 10,000 students at all their campuses throughout the state. They opened its first school in 2013, and it's already the 6th largest. Okay. They currently operate 2 campuses in Dallas County, 6 campuses in Tarrant County, and 2 in the Houston area. So the charter added 5 campuses and another 5 campuses just last August. So the International Leadership Academy has been the fastest growing charter school in Texas without any competition. They've just been going. And if you look at some of their campuses, they can build them pretty quick. They kind of play by a different, charters, as y'all know, they have a little bit different set of rules they play by, and they can just show up. This was a 14-15 projected Keller ISD student growth. We projected Keller ISD to lose about 144 students in 14-15 when that campus opened. A 5-year loss of students there was about 1,000 students, and 10 years of 2,170. This was after the IL impact, okay? Now, what happened in 14-15, I should back up. We projected 144. They actually lost about 300. So they came in under our forecast by about 150 students when that charter school opened. Now you can see they bounced back 298 and 255. They got some students back those following years. And Keller's, they're slowing down, but that's a lot of that's because they're beginning to build out, not because of the charter impact there in Keller. Here's a couple other campuses where we know that IL of Keller opened in K-8 with 1,400. They have 1,400 current students. They opened with 1,300, so they kind of opened it up almost at capacity in that first year. The IL of North Richland Hills opened with K-8 in 2016, and they opened with 1,200 students. And you can see what it did there in Birdville. They lost 471 students in that first year. Eagle Mountain Saginaw had one open up just this year, and I can tell you that we kind of did a similar scenario with them where we expected them to lose enrollment. They asked us to forecast both what we do with and without enrollment. I mean, with and without the charter, we did the same thing. We thought their impact would be similar to Carroll's, Keller's, like about negative, about 115, and they lost 330 students when school started this year. So they came in higher than, again, the charter was more successful than we anticipated. It's just spectacular.
I'm sorry, was that Eagle Mountain?
This is Eagle Mountain now, yes, sir. So 1,230 students were in that, were in that academy as of September when we called. They'd like to reach 1,400. The Keller, the Saginaw they moved to a permanent campus in August, including 9th through 12th for high school, 263 students in 2016-17 and 444 in 2017. So again, just they're not having any problem getting students at this point in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. I think that's it. So with that, I open it up. Sure.
Thank you for that. Anybody have any questions?
None?
I do. Do you have an idea how long it takes them to open the high school before? Do you have any idea of how long before they open the high school in these areas?
They've used two different. A lot of times they'll start with they'll open their K-8, and that eighth. If they're successful, if they can open that K-8 with enough students, the next they'll do it 1 year at a time. So they typically, when they open the high school, they open it with the 9th grade, and then the next year it's 10th. Now they went into a couple areas in Dallas-Fort Worth this past year and just went to full high school, like that one that opened in the Eagle Mountain, the Texas Keller Saginaw one that opened in 16-17 with 263 students. That was a 9th, 10th, I think, that opened up, and then it became 11 to 12 with the 444 students. So there's no real consistency, but usually they build from their base. They start at K-8. Sometimes we see them start with a K-2 and a 6. And they'll add a grade each year with those coming in, and then when they gives them about 3 years before they get to high school.
Is the current campus able to accommodate that, or what
The
if
one
they
in,
were?
the one in College Station that's coming here, it's going to accommodate K-8. They're going to have another campus to go to high school. Now they have applied for that. They want to be a high school eventually, but what I saw in an email today is they got approved right now for the K-8 in College Station and the K-8 in Bryan. Last I heard, they hadn't found a site for the K-8 in Bryan, so even though it was approved to start in 2018, it probably won't. Now we've been known to find out about a charter in February, and they're online by September. They're much faster. They can find buildings, but the one in College Station is a sure thing.
Anybody else?
I guess I would like to add, I agree with Rocky. It's very difficult to make assumptions and projections about what's going to happen in College Station and the Brazos County. Between Bryan ISD and College Station ISD, we have about 29,000, just under 30,000 public school students. Going back to that map, when you look at Keller, they have, 35,000 students. Eagle Mountain Saginaw has about 19,000 students. Northwest ISD has 30-something, 30,000 students. So you just see the number of school kids that they can pull from right here. They're also in places like Katy. They're also in Garland and some other bigger metropolitan counties. So what's that going to really look like for Brazos County is what we're trying to figure out. And so we did ask Temple Demographics to come back with 3 sets of numbers to look at. And as we go through, you'll see when Mr. Martindale brings his presentation a little bit. I think for right now, we're trying to zero in on that medium number, that low growth, which is basically no growth. 44 students or 0.3%, at least for right now, for our planning purposes. So, as you know, as we go through the budgeting and staffing process throughout the spring, we'll have other opportunities to be able to revisit this and adjust our assumptions. But that's some of the work that we've done right now internally, trying to figure out where what numbers we want to use for budgeting and for staffing.
What kind of information is required for someone to go ahead and register for a charter school? Do they have to acknowledge that they've pulled their child out of public school, or is it a case where they're double enrolled until September and you don't realize it until they show up?
Oftentimes, when students leave College Station ISD, sometimes we do know about it because they let us know and they send a request for records. Sometimes when kids move away, we don't find out until after school starts and there is a request for records at that time. So it depends on when the student would move. And that's for a charter school in our town, for moving across town, or somewhere else in the state.
I just add, I do believe that they can register for the charter. They've got a billboard on the way into town right now. IL does, and so you can register for that charter school now and
Apply.
apply. Yeah, apply would be better way to put that.
Anything else? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rocky.
We'll move on to C2, consideration discussion related to the annual enrollment review and report, FC Local. Dr. Ely.
Dr. Yokin, members of the board, it's our pleasure to bring the first annual enrollment review and report to the board per board policy FC Local that we worked on earlier this year. The intent of this policy and the intent of this report is a way to manage our enrollment growth and look at a snapshot of where we are each year at this same time to see what are our 5-year enrollment horizon projections per campus. Also to look at our comparability in terms of among our intermediate and among our middle school and between our 2 comprehensive high schools. Mr. Martindale has taken much of this report from Templeton demographics update that you just received, and then we've got some additional information there as well. So our goal tonight is just to give this report and have a conversation, hear what the board has to say. So with that, Mr. Martindale.
As per policy, FC Local, every December, we're supposed to review a facilities and enrollment projections,
Hand me one of those, would you? Thanks, sir.
with the board, include the demographic data, an updated 5-year enrollment number, and as Dr. Ely just mentioned, we're going to use Templeton's numbers and then look at those and look at capacity projections for each of the particular campuses. The 2 pieces in FC Local that I'll highlight using Templeton's projections are facility utilization. In FC Local, we identified facility capacity between 85 and 110% range. The other marker that is used in FC Local is the percentage of economically disadvantaged students at each school. And if you remember that for the intermediate middles, the board utilized a 15 percentage point or greater to not be comparable. At the high school, we used a 12% marker. So that's just a quick review of FC Local. Of course, the actual policy is 5 pages long and it is linked to your agenda. But those are the markers we'll take a look at, are the building capacity numbers as well as the percentage of free and reduced numbers at each of those. Now, the question then becomes, which particular projection do we use to apply FC Local to? As Dr. Ely just alluded to, I'm going to utilize kind of the middle projection, the low charter impact, the 0.3% growth or an addition of 44 students next year. I'm taking the middle one so that as to not to overreact to the possible charter impact, at the same time not ignore it either. So I'm just going to kind of go right down the middle with this and apply FC Local to those particular numbers. Of course, again, all these numbers are numbers that Rocky just shared with you for 17-18 school year. We're recognizing an addition of 459 students or a growth of 3.5% at this point in time. Using their low impact, they're projecting a growth of 44 students next year or 0.3%. And then you can see the out years after that. And according to FC Local, we'll project out for 5 years for the purpose of this policy. So you can see an average growth beginning 1920 and out of the high 3%, not quite 4% on average, but over 500 students after the initial year and impact that we would experience with the opening of the charter in 1819. These are a whole lot of numbers. I know you're looking forward to more numbers, but all of these numbers are, again, straight from Templeton's projections. And let me tell you what I did so that we can apply FC Local to these particular numbers. If you'll just follow with me across with College Hills, the number in parentheses 660 is the capacity number utilized for that particular campus. And you can see that all the way down for each elementary school. I applied the capacity numbers in FC Local, 85% to 110% for each one of the campuses, utilizing the building capacity number in parentheses. So this gives us a range that we're looking for our capacity or facility use. Then I used the projected numbers for each of those particular campuses. Remember, 17, 18 are actual numbers. Those are actuals through our October snapshot. Everything forward, 18, 19 out. For example, College Hills, the 749, 768, so on and so forth, are the projections for the low impact. The color coding, if you haven't already figured out, is as if it's beyond the 110% capacity projection. So for example, College Hills, that 110%, 726, you can see College Hills is already beyond that number at this point in time. Take a look at Creekview, and I'll just touch on a couple of these. Creekview, a capacity number of 640. We apply those percentages to get our range for building use. Current year 602, and you project out 566. Stays in the 500 range, moves back into the 600s in 21, 22. These numbers are clear or transparent. There's no highlighting of these because they fit within that 85 to 110% capacity number that's articulated in FC Local. You can see the same for Forest Ridge, exceeding that out in 2021. Greens Prairie, no surprise to any of us in this room that they're have a very high enrollment. Pebble Creek, for example, 620 projected facility, and here's our range, 527 to 682. They are currently 420, projected out at 407, 427, 455, 485. And of course, you have probably figured this, the green is if they're under the 85% of that capacity for that facility. They move into the transparent or white in 22, 23 for 536. So I applied kind of the color coding to this because I think it allows you to look at it. You can see very quickly particular areas that we need to be cognizant of. Something else to be reminded of, and I know the board knows this, is we're scheduled to open our 10th elementary school in 2019, 2020. So as that comes online and we prepare for opening that, and we consider our boundaries for that elementary school, this highlighting tells us very much where we need to provide relief as well as add some capacity. Any particular questions on the elementary numbers before I move forward? Did the same thing for the 5-6 campus. Again, in parentheses is the building capacity, applied the range articulated in FC Local, and then remember the 17, 18 numbers are actual enrollments, and then those numbers projected out is from Rocky's presentation earlier. As you can see at the intermediate level, they're all green, but this is exactly what we would expect considering the fact that we just opened Pecan Trail this year. So all of these being green are functioning under the 85% mark right now is really exactly what we want. It tells us we're positioned for growth at the 5-6 level for the future. The other piece of FC Local has to do with comparable composition. So I utilized the percentage of kids free and reduced lunch to come up with those comparisons. So if I will walk you through this, Cypress Grove currently has a free and reduced percentage of 34.14%. That's economically disadvantaged students. This data is pulled from our snapshot submission from this year in October that we submit to TEA, 34.14%. I'm going to do each of these, and I'll go back and kind of tell you what the other information is. Oakwood, 43.1, Pecan Trail, 23%. This last column, the variance, remember we were looking for the 15% mark is what's articulated for the intermediate middle schools and FC local. Cypress Grove, the biggest variance was with Pecan Trail. That's a difference of 11.1% in their EDA percentages. The one exceeding the variance that is as per FC local of 15%, it's the variance between Oakwood and Pecan Trail. That is a difference of 20.07% currently. Now, out of curiosity, because as we open Pecan Trail, last year's fifth graders that got rezoned were eligible for grandfathering as they moved into sixth grade. So I was curious what impact that would have on some of these numbers. So in the parentheses, the GF, that's the number of kids grandfathered at that campus currently. So for example, Cypress Grove, 29 kiddos grandfathered there in sixth grade, Oakwood, 55. I cross-referenced these kids that grandfathered with those students receiving free or reduced lunch. I moved them to their home campus, removed the grandfathering piece, looked at what the percentages would be if I placed them at their zone campus. Does that make sense? Okay, and that's where the other percentages come from. Cypress Grove, if I move the grandfather students out and place them where they're zoned, the free and reduced percentage would become 34.4. So it doesn't really move much. There's not much impact there. Oakwood would drop about a percentage, and Pecan Trail would move up about 2 percentage points. So the impact of the grandfathering, if we account for that, moves this number to about 17%. Still not within the 15% range, but does move us closer to that direction. Any questions on the intermediates, and I'll move to the middle schools. I apply the same methodology throughout the rest of the slides, so we can probably move a little quicker. Here's our middle schools, a capacity number of 920 for A&M Consolidated Middle School and 940 for College Station Middle School. You can see the ranges as we look at capacity. Current year, 911 and 1,067, so we're beyond that capacity number at College Station Middle School currently. And our projected numbers that Templeton just provided us, anticipating opening up Wellborn Middle School with 638 next year, College Station Middle School at 667, and A&M Consolidated Middle School at 674. This does not account for any influence grandfathering may have. So this is, so please be aware of that. So again, the green tells us we're positioned nicely for growth at College Station Middle School and A&M Consolidated Middle School. Wellborn 638, 683, and obviously we have a large cohort group moving through there because we have a significant jump in 2021. And stabilizes after that at 848, but that places them right within their capacity range. So similar to what we saw at the intermediates, positioned for the future fairly well at the 7-8 level. Comparison of our economically disadvantaged. Again, until we open Wellborn, there's really not a comparison mark to apply FC local to on that. We'll have to see how our zoning plays out with the Wellborn Middle School. Currently, A&M Consolidated Middle School at 43.6%, College Station Middle School at 22.8 for a variance of 20.84. So as Wellborn Middle School comes aboard next year, when I provide the board an update in December, we'll be able to share the percentage for Wellborn Middle School and look at what variance may exist there. And I'll cross-reference the numbers with any grandfathering, just as I did with the intermediate schools. Okay, questions? And lastly, our high schools. Using a capacity number for consolidated at 2350 and College Station High School at 1950, knowing that we are already at 1996 there. We generated our capacity ranges, the FC local, 1713 at Consol, that's current enrollment, 1996 at College Station High School, and again, our projected values from Templeton for the next 5 years. The green is showing us that consolidated from a facility standpoint, falling below the 85% mark until 21-22, then it falls within that range. College Station High School is there now, and just going over that 110% capacity mark at 2149 in 1920 and out. At our high schools, our free and reduced lunch percentages, this is the same as I applied to the intermediates. Consolidated currently 34.56%, College Station 20.23, for a variance of 14.33. Our grandfathering is almost identical at those two schools. Pretty much all the children chose to stay where they were. So when I cross-reference that number and recalculated, it did draw Consol down to 32% and CSHS up to 22.4. So that tightens that up for us a little bit more and pulls us into that variance if you take into account the grandfathering. So with that being said, as those classes that were allowed to grandfather moves out, we should see this trend toward that variance. We should. Lots of information. I try to take FC local and apply that to the projections that Templeton provided us. And again, I use the low impact numbers to apply FC local to.
Thank you for that. It's very well done. Any questions or comments?
I have a comment. Thank you. That's very well done. That's an awful lot of information to try to digest. And I'm sure we will have questions moving forward. Is it okay if we have an issue, email, if we want clarification on certain things?
Absolutely. It is a great deal of information that we'll need to digest as we're digesting all of our other food over the holiday break. But yes, please get in touch with me if you have any questions, and we'll try to get that for you in due course.
Thanks.
Anybody else? Okay, thank you, Mr. Martindale. We'll move on to C3, consideration, discussion, and possible action related to, our favorite thing, Mr. Harris, related to the 2018-19 school calendar development process.
Yeah, you're going to be able to do that? I think so. Okay. Thank you very much, Dr. Yokin, members of the board. I apologize in that I did not have these calendars ready to go for the audience to be able to see. Chuck is going to work real quickly to try to bring those up so that we can talk through them. And Mr. Martindale is, oh, wow, that's very quick. Very much. Sorry, I should not have acted surprised. I apologize, Mr. Glenwinkle. So I don't have to vamp too much. What you have in front of you is a summary of kind of what is on all calendars and then what is available on options A, B, and C. So I want to kind of go through that, and we'll display the various calendars here to everybody here in just a second. So some of the things that are in common with we have 3 calendars that we plan to move forward to the community with tomorrow. And put those online for comments and voting by sometime during the day tomorrow. What's common to all calendars is a first semester final exams before the winter break has been customary in College Station ISD. 2 full weeks for the winter break for students. You'll be happy to note that all 3 calendars have Labor Day as a holiday. Martin Luther King Jr. is a holiday on all 3. Spring break for a week tied with Texas A&M. All of them call for a graduation on May the 24th. All of them have an early release day before the winter holiday, Christmas break, and early release on the last day of school. And all of them have 174 days of instruction and 187 work days for teachers. So looking at briefly, and that is pretty small, so I will try to make it bigger for everyone. Calendar option A would, all of these are available. The flexibility that we have available this year is as a result of us becoming a district of innovation. And so the work that the board did and that DEIC and Dr. Trammell's group did to make that a reality in College Station ISD means that we can start earlier than the fourth Monday in August. And all three of these examples contemplate an earlier start. With this one, we would have 6 days of staff development, so teachers would start back on Monday the 13th. And this is the one option that does have 4 days of instruction that first week, which is obviously advantageous for our youngest students and teachers of our youngest students. This one would have back-to-back staff development days in October, the 8th and the 9th. It allows families, if they want a little bit longer break with their kids, it also allows us to be able to have staff development, and for our elementary teachers who do elementary conferences on that 8th, for them to be able to have a day of staff development as well to go along those elementary parent conferences. This has the traditional Thanksgiving break for us, which would be the 3 days, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday off. December, I think, looks the same in all the calendars with a half day, with early release, on the 21st. For this option coming back on the 3rd and the 4th of January, these would be comp days. These would be for teachers and staff members who get 6 hours of staff development on their own time, off contract, or in the evenings or on the weekends. They would be able to trade that in for these days off. So these would be student holidays, but they would also be options for teachers who get that comp day. President's Day would be a day of staff development, spring break in March. Good Friday would be on the 19th. It would also be a comp day for teachers and a holiday for students. Last day of school would be Thursday the 23rd, and then a work day for teachers on the 24th, with graduation being that evening. Okay. So I'm going to go back here and go to option B. Option B and C would both have 7 days of staff development prior to the year, which would be teachers would come back on August the 18th, and students would start on Monday the 20th. Traditional staff development, elementary parent conference day in October. We'd have 3 days off for both students and teachers. For this calendar, also the 19th and 20th, that Monday and Tuesday, would be those comp day for staff. So if they got 6 hours for one day and 6 hours for another of staff development on their own time off contract, they'd be able to cash those in for being off those days. December looks the same, January looks the same, February looks the same, so does March. And in April, we'd be looking at a day off for staff and students of Good Friday, and a comp day for staff on the 22nd for those who took advantage of that. This calendar would end as the last day of instruction on the 24th, also for graduation. And as we've done many years in the past, teachers would come back in and staff would come in on the 25th for that work day to clear up everything that we need to for the end of the year. And then again, that would be starting the first day of the summer that afternoon, and you see Memorial Day there on the 27th. Okay. And then finally, our third flavor would be option C, and it is, again, August looks like the option B. September looks the same, and October would be providing, again, a longer weekend in October for families of our students. The elementary parent conference day and staff development day moves to Friday, and then Monday. That's okay. And Monday the 8th, which is Columbus Day, would actually be a holiday. And then Thanksgiving looks like B does. December, January, February, March look the same. Holiday for staff and students on Good Friday. And then this one's a little different, and this is a little bit of thinking outside the box for us as an institution, talking about having a couple of staff development days, or a work day and a staff development day after the close of school. And this would be mirroring what we do with our administrators at the district level already. We used to plan for the year and have our administrators all together after everybody comes back on contract in either very late July or early August. What we found is with the pressure of school starting and wanting to be on our campuses and in classrooms and hire teachers and those types of things, it stunted a little bit our ability to sit back and think about and plan and dream and create for the next school year. What we've gone to with our Summer Administrative Leadership Institute is having that work done in June right after the school year ends. You put the school year to bed, exhale deeply, and then start thinking about the next school year without that press of kids and teachers and students and everybody coming and trying to make those last minute preparations to get kids into class. So this would be an opportunity for our staff and teachers to kind of have that opportunity themselves for those 2 days after Memorial Day. So again, all of these have 174 days of instruction for students and 187 day for teacher contracts. So really what we wanted to do with the board this evening was show you kind of what we, DEIC in their work had come up with based on preliminary feedback. And our intention would be to put these on the website tomorrow for feedback over the break and bring you back a recommendation after DEIC processes that feedback at their January meeting. And so a decision for you at the January regular meeting. Would love to know if there's anything up here, if these are good options for us to move forward. If there's anything on here you can't live with.
So when I hear you describe the difference between B and C, the impact I heard was more on the teachers and staff. And is that true?
There's some different ways we treat what goes on in October around that time, and then around the Easter break, when it's not Easter, but around the Easter time period in April. I think those are the main differences. But conceptually is this is the one, the C version is the one contract that contemplates using 2 of those 13 staff development and classroom planning days after the last day of instruction for students. That's the main difference.
Since that doesn't have a direct impact on students, I would question how you're going to get an accurate assessment on how the staff would feel about that, because you're opening it up to everyone. And if that were to be considered a very positive thing by the staff, it may be difficult to capture that.
Yes, it is. And normally when we do this survey, we take demographic data and we ask survey participants to identify themselves as teacher, student, because we do have students who participate in this, community member, parent, and we disaggregate that information by that type of student group. So I don't see that located on here, but I don't think that that'd be too difficult to add for us before we move forward with the survey tomorrow. Also, DEIC will be the ones that will be processing all of this data, and that is made up of 2/3 at least teachers who are involved in that group. So they will have an opportunity to bring some information back as to what teachers are feeling in regards to these various options as well.
I'd also suggest that you make sure that on the survey that you capture that as well, because that seems like a significant characteristic of that calendar, and you would want to be sure that you're able to understand how the people it impacted, because as a parent, that is not going to impact how you vote. And if it really is something that the staff would like, you somehow need to capture that information.
Yes, ma'am.
I have one comment. We spent 2 hours and 15 minutes talking about the calendar. Somebody missed the meeting. Good one to miss. But I want you to know that I think because we have for the first time in a long time any kind of option, really, because of the being a district of innovation, it provides opportunity that everybody was looking at. And I think as far as the community is concerned, I think that you're exactly right. I think there are several things the community is going to be looking at. And that would be the first day of school, the last day of school. And then I think with the biggest thing that I got out of this meeting was, do you want a week long at Thanksgiving, or do you want 4 days in October and a week, and then our normal 3 days at Thanksgiving? And that's really kind of the decision point, really, to me, for those 2 first calendars that we're talking about. I have to agree with Dr. Yokin. I think that I had talked to Dr. Ely, and he did say that they will be able to, be able to see the teachers' comments on this, and I hope that's true, because I do think that that last calendar really more has to do with how the teachers and staff feel about where their days are and how the district moves forward, so.
Dr. Wesson? No, I'm not going to try it even. Okay.
Sure.
If he falls over in his chair during the meeting, we will have to, take a break. But don't anybody rush up to say hello to him. I don't think he's feeling well. Anybody else?
I would like to ask one question. With your expertise and knowledge of people around the state, what percentage of other districts you think take off the week of Thanksgiving? Is it very common, or just your gut feeling?
This is unscientific. So I would say there is a growing trend across the state of districts taking off an entire week. Most of those districts aren't located predominantly in a community with a very large university that only takes the 3 days off. So we look a little different than many of the others, but I would say when you go to more of your metropolitan areas, you'll see more of this of districts taking the entire week off. Unscientific.
Mr. Harris?
Yeah, I just kind of have a basic question about all of them, or I'll phrase it this way. Are there any of these options that you feel or think do not set the district up for the students and the staff to have success?
No, I think any of these would be
They'll all work?
wholly appropriate. Absolutely.
Okay.
Anybody else? All right, well, we're confident with as quick as Chuck got those up there, is that we'll all be voting at 6 o'clock in the morning?
I wouldn't say that. It looks like we've got a little bit of adjusting to do. So
Okay.
you hold off on that,
All right.
but we'll get them up tomorrow.
All right, so we'll move on to C4, consideration, discussion, and possible action related to the bond refunding options. Dr. Ely.
Madam President, members of the board, it's our pleasure to bring Victor Quiroga, who's here with Frost Bank. He's our financial advisor. We have an opportunity to save the taxpayers some money through the refinancing of some older debt, and Victor's going to give us the specifics on that. We also have Jeff Gulbis with McCall and Parkhurst, who's here in the audience as well. He's our bond counsel. And so if there's any question that's too hard for Victor, Jeff will be able to answer that. As far as the legalities of what we'll be proposing tonight. This is an action item on the agenda at the regular board meeting. So with more information on this is Victor Quiroga.
Thank you. Honorable President, members of the board, Dr. Ely, thank you for having me here this evening. We're here to discuss with you another refinancing opportunity for the board to consider. This refinancing opportunity is currently driven by still historically low municipal bond interest rates. Initially, we're going to come to you in December and go into the bond market, assuming we receive your approval, to execute the refinancing next month. However, there's been some developments with respect to the federal tax reform law that impacts school districts and impacts municipal bond issuers. So basically, a long story short is that the window will be closing for this type of refinancing opportunity for any municipal bond issuer starting December 31st. And so we're in a little bit more rushed timeline. So these are some of the items that were initially going to be eliminated from the due to the federal tax reform. After the committee went into conference, they retained the first three items. I'm not going to go into detail with them, but the one that pertains to us as a municipal bond issuer is the elimination of tax-exempt advanced refundings. What this means is that whenever we issue bonds, unlike a mortgage or a car loan, when you could refinance it at any time so long as you're willing to incur the cost, municipal bonds are highly regulated, and you only have, based on current law, one opportunity before the call date of a particular bond issue. So under the federal tax law, they're going to take away that opportunity and restrict how many times you could basically refinance your bond starting, again, January 1st of this year. So here, currently, the district has 10 bond issuances outstanding. The outstanding principal amount is just above $361 million. Of that principal amount, based on those bond covenants for those particular issuances, the callable principal is just under $240 million. The two bond issuances that we've identified for a refinancing opportunity are the Series 2010-2011 bond issuances. Eligible for refinancing probably about $63 million. However, based off of our detailed analysis, we've identified about $45 million of those bonds that are eligible to refinance. We did take some of these out last year in the 2016 refinancing, about $16.11 million of the two bond issuances that we've identified to refinance. Here's a little bit more detail on the next slide, the summary of maturities generating 4%. Basically, whenever we look at these refinancings, we look at a present value savings ratio of that refinancing, and if it's 4% or above, that's something that we would recommend the district to pursue. Industry standard is to target a minimum threshold of 3%. We're a little bit more conservative, so we advise on a 4% PV savings ratio. So the two bond issuances this year is 2010-2011. We have identified $46.2 million to refinance. The average interest rate on those bonds, which is a fixed interest rate currently, is just above 4% at a 4.03%. Based on current market conditions, we may have an opportunity to refinance these bonds tomorrow at a 3.1% interest rate. That'll generate interest cost savings of just under $3.7 million. That present value savings ratio that we look at to determine how healthy this refinancing is at a 6.05% right now, so it's above the 4% PV savings threshold that we recommend. The next slide is just an illustration of the average annual debt service savings that we're able to achieve. All we're doing here, ladies and gentlemen, is we're just going to switch a higher interest rate with a lower interest rate. We're not going to be extending the original term of the bond issuance. So we're still going to pay it off on time. And so you can see there on the far right column the way we're able to generate the $3.6 million in interest cost savings, which averages about $194,000 per year for this refinancing opportunity. The steps today is this evening at your regular board meeting, you'll be considering a parameter sale order or a delegated authority bond order. Basically, if you allow the staff and myself to move forward with this, we would enter the bond market as early as tomorrow. All the documents have been prepared in anticipation of that approval. We would go ahead and lock in the interest rate, and you would delegate the authority to sign the final documents to Dr. Ely or to Mr. Martindale, subject to us meeting that minimum present value savings threshold that we discussed. Because the federal law is changing soon, we're going to be scheduled to close this transaction quickly if everything goes well tomorrow, and close this transaction on December 28th. And there's no meeting required for that. That's just done electronically. So this is just information regarding the delegation authority or the parameter sale order that I discussed. We do have some limits on there. We just put the higher amount, the $63.5 million of bonds, just to give us some flexibility, but in all likelihood, we'll refinance about $46 million. The minimum savings threshold will be 4%. The next slide is the term sheet. Basically, this is just a summary of the transaction. Again, just wanted to highlight that we will not be extending the original term of the repayment schedule. We have attained the permanent school fund guarantee, which allows us to market these bonds with the safest available rating of a AAA rating. The last page here, ladies and gentlemen, is just a history of the refinancings that we recently have executed. And so the 2015-16 and then potentially 2017 tomorrow has generated approximately $12.8 million in interest cost savings. So, of course, the one that's still an estimated projected is for the one to occur tomorrow. We hope things will stay about where they're at right now. But we'll be in touch with administration once or before we actually go into the market, assuming you give us approval to move forward on the refinancing. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Anybody have any questions or comments? Thank you for that.
I do have one question. It's just a point of clarification. Basically the savings that are reflected on the chart on page 5, make sure I read the footnote correctly. That's net of the cost of the transaction.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Anyone else? Go ahead.
Are we going to act on this now?
No, you're gonna wait till the regular meeting.
This looks like a no-brainer for the next meeting.
It'd be a great way to go out, but I'm not going to do it.
Yeah, saving us money, do that.
Saving us money.
Yeah, well, I've saved you a lot of money in the past, too. So. Okay, anything else? With that, we'll adjourn.
Thank you.